There are nights when the world finally goes quiet, but your mind doesn't. You lie there in the dark, eyes closed, body tired, yet thoughts keep drifting in. Not loud, not dramatic, just persistent enough to keep you awake. They're not always worries. Sometimes they're memories, sometimes unfinished conversations, sometimes nothing specific at all. Just a restless feeling that refuses to settle. If that sounds familiar, you're not broken, you're human. I know this because I've been there too. There was a time when I believed sleep was something you had to achieve. I tried controlling my breathing. I tried forcing my thoughts to stop. I even tried telling myself that if I didn't fall asleep soon, tomorrow would be ruined. Which, of course, only made things worse. What I slowly learned is this. The mind doesn't relax when it's pressured. It relaxes when it feels safe. That's why this video exists. This isn't a lesson. There's nothing here you need to remember, analyze, or understand. You don't need to focus. You don't need to try. You can let these words pass through you the same way background light passes through a room at night. Softly, without demand. Over time, I noticed something interesting. When I listened to gentle, neutral information before sleep, things that weren't emotional, urgent, or intense, my mind stopped searching for problems to solve. It finally had something calm to rest on. A close friend of mine experienced the same thing. For years, she struggled with falling asleep. Not because of anxiety exactly, but because her mind simply wouldn't slow down. One night, instead of music or silence, she played a calm voice talking about simple, oddly relaxing ideas. Nothing important, nothing dramatic. She told me later, I didn't even remember what I was listening to. I just remember waking up. That's the point. Sleep doesn't arrive when we chase it. It arrives when we stop demanding anything from ourselves. Tonight, you don't need to improve. You don't need to fix your life. You don't even need to fall asleep. Just being here is enough. As you listen, your body already knows what to do. It has done this thousands of times before. Your heart knows how to slow. Your breath knows how to deepen. Your nervous system knows how to release, when it's allowed to. Think of this video as a quiet companion. It's here to keep your mind gently occupied, so the rest of you can rest. And if your thoughts wander, that's okay. If you fall asleep halfway through, that's perfect. If you stay awake longer than you hoped, there's no failure in that either. There is no goal here, only permission. And before we continue, there's one small thing I want to say. Not urgently, not loudly. If you know someone in your life who's tired in ways they don't talk about, someone who struggles to rest, to slow down, or to feel at peace at night, please consider sharing this video with them. Not because it will change everything, but because sometimes a quiet moment like this can gently improve someone's life in ways they didn't expect. Now, settle in. Let your shoulders drop. Let the day loosen its grip. You don't need to listen closely from here on. Just let the night do what it's always known how to do. Chapter 1. Why the mind refuses to rest at night. Night changes the way the mind behaves. During the day, your thoughts are constantly occupied. There are messages to answer, decisions to make, people to respond to. Your attention is pulled outward, again and again, until thinking becomes automatic. But at night, when the world finally grows quiet, that outward pull disappears, and without it, the mind turns inward. This is often the moment people mistake for a problem. You lie down. Your body is tired, the room is dark, and yet your thoughts begin to move. Not in a dramatic way, not with panic or urgency, just a gentle but persistent stream of ideas, memories, and unfinished moments. This doesn't happen because you're overthinking, and it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It happens because the mind was never designed to shut off instantly. For most of human history, night was a time of uncertainty. darkness meant limited vision. Limited vision meant vulnerability. So the brain learned to stay alert when everything went quiet. Even now, in safe rooms and comfortable beds, that ancient habit remains. When the external world fades, the mind checks inward, just in case. I used to fight this. I believed that rest required control, that if I could just force my thoughts to stop, sleep would follow. But forcing calm only taught my mind that something was wrong. A close friend once described his nights this way. My body was ready to sleep, but my mind kept pacing the room. Nothing bad was happening. There was no real danger, yet his thoughts refused to sit still. What the mind is really looking for in those moments isn't silence, it's reassurance. The nervous system needs to feel safe before it can rest. Not informed, not convinced, just safe. That's why silence can feel uncomfortable at night. When there's nothing neutral to focus on, the mind begins to wander. It revisits conversations, it replays small mistakes, it imagines future moments that may never happen. Not because it wants to upset you, but because it's searching for something familiar to hold on to. Someone I know used to fall asleep with the television on, not because she cared about the content, but because the sound gave her mind somewhere gentle to rest. Over time, she noticed something interesting. Fast-paced shows kept her awake. Emotional dialogue pulled her attention back into the world. And what helped instead was something slower. A calm voice. Simple ideas. Information that didn't require reaction or judgment. That's when sleep began to return. The mind doesn't need excitement at night. It needs something steady. Think of it like this. When a child can't fall asleep, you don't demand quiet. You lower your voice. You stay present. You offer something simple and predictable. Your mind responds in much the same way. Trying to force it into silence often feels like pressure. Giving it something gentle to listen to feels like care. This is why calm, neutral facts can be so effective before sleep. They occupy just enough attention to prevent worry without creating stimulation. You don't need to remember what you hear. You don't need to follow every word. In fact, forgetting is a sign that your mind is beginning to rest. There was a time when I measured my nights in minutes, watching the clock, counting how much sleep I was losing. What changed wasn't my schedule, it was my understanding. I stopped treating wakefulness as failure. I stopped trying to control the night. Instead, I let it be what it was. Some nights, sleep arrived quickly. Some nights, it came slowly. And some nights, it arrived without warning, somewhere between thoughts. Your body already knows how to do this. It slows your breathing when it feels safe. It softens your muscles when it's no longer being watched. It rests when it's allowed to. You don't need to guide it. As you listen now, you can let your thoughts come and go. There's no need to hold on to them. There's no need to push them away. Nothing here requires effort. This chapter doesn't ask for understanding. It doesn't ask for change. It only offers space. And in that space, rest often finds its way back on its own. Chapter 2. How gentle information calms the nervous system. There is a reason certain sounds make the body soften. A quiet voice, a slow rhythm, words that don't ask anything from you. The nervous system is always listening, even when you're not aware of it. It doesn't understand logic the way the thinking mind does. It responds to tone, pacing, and safety. During the day, your system stays alert because it has to. There are signals everywhere. Noise, movement, expectation. Your body remains slightly prepared, just in case something demands attention. At night, that alertness doesn't disappear on its own. It needs a signal that tells it, nothing is required right now. This is where gentle information becomes powerful. Not information that teaches, not information that excites curiosity, but information that simply exists. And I noticed this in my own life without meaning to. On nights when I listened to intense stories or emotional conversations, my body stayed awake, even if my eyes were closed. But when the content was slow, neutral, and predictable, something different happened. My breathing deepened without effort. My shoulders relaxed on their own. A family member once told me something similar. She said she didn't want silence before bed, but she also didn't want stimulation. What she needed was something in between, a steady presence that didn't demand attention. That middle space is where the nervous system feels safest. Gentle information works because it gives the mind a simple anchor. It prevents the endless search for something to think about, and at the same time, it doesn't trigger alertness. Think about how the body reacts to a familiar routine, a repeated path, a known sound. The predictability itself becomes calming. This is why repetitive, soft explanations can be so effective at night. Not because they're important, but because they're consistent. Your nervous system recognizes consistency as safety. There's no surprise, no urgency, no emotional spike, just a slow, even flow. I once asked a friend why she preferred listening to calm facts instead of music. She said, "Music makes me feel. These words just let me rest." That difference matters. Emotion activates the body. Neutral presence allows it to release. When the nervous system feels safe, it stops scanning. It stops preparing. It stops holding tension in small, invisible ways. Your jaw loosens. Your hands soften. Your breathing slows. None of this requires effort. You don't need to concentrate on what's being said. You don't need to follow every idea. In fact, the less you try to understand, the better this works. Let the words become background. Let them blur the edges. Let your attention drift in and out. This isn't a loss of focus. It's a sign of rest beginning. There's nothing productive happening here. And that's exactly the point. At night, productivity keeps the system awake. Stillness invites it to settle. If you notice your thoughts wandering, that's fine. If you forget what you just heard, that's perfect. Your nervous system doesn't need clarity. It needs permission. Permission to slow. Permission to release. Permission to stop listening for danger. As this chapter continues, or as it fades into the next, you don't need to stay with it. You can drift. You can rest. You can let the body take over from here. Because long before the mind learned to think, the body learned how to sleep. And it still remembers. How gentle information calms the nervous system. There is a quiet language the nervous system understands. It is not spoken in words. It is felt in tone, in rhythm, in consistency. You don't have to know this language to respond to it. Your body already does. All day long, the nervous system stays slightly alert. Not tense, just ready. Ready to respond. Ready to adjust. Ready to react. Even when nothing urgent is happening, that readiness remains. At night, the body doesn't suddenly forget this habit. It needs a signal that tells it there is nothing else to prepare for. Gentle information provides that signal, not because of what it says, but because of how it arrives. Slowly, evenly, without urgency. The nervous system does not analyze meaning. It listens for safety. Safety sounds steady, predictable, unconcerned. When information comes without emotional charge, the body stops scanning for threat. It doesn't brace. It doesn't anticipate. It releases. You may notice this release in small ways, a softening behind the eyes, a slight drop in the shoulders, a deeper pause between breaths. These changes are not decisions. They happen before thought. That is the nervous system responding. I once noticed that when I listened to content designed to persuade or inspire, my body stayed engaged. Even if the message was positive, it asked something of me. Gentle information asks for nothing. It doesn't pull you forward. It doesn't invite reaction. It simply exists. A friend once described this feeling as being allowed to stop paying attention. That permission is powerful. Attention is effort, and effort keeps the system awake. When effort fades, the nervous system no longer feels responsible. It can rest. You don't need to focus on what's being said now. Focusing keeps the mind involved. Instead, you can let the sound pass through you. Like background light in a room, present but not demanding. If your thoughts drift, that's fine. If they come back briefly, that's fine too. The nervous system is not measuring your attention. It is measuring consistency, and consistency is already here. The same tone, the same pace. No surprises. This predictability is reassuring, and it tells the body nothing sudden will happen, nothing will interrupt, nothing will be required. As this sense of safety settles in, the body begins to power down systems it no longer needs. Muscles release micro-tension, breathing becomes less controlled. Awareness narrows. You may feel less interested in the words, less curious. This is not boredom. It is the nervous system stepping out of alert mode. There's nothing to stay engaged with anymore. And that is exactly what allows rest to deepen. You don't need to help this process. Helping would mean effort. You don't need to notice it either. Noticing pulls the mind back. It happens best when it happens unnoticed. As this chapter continues, the information can become less distinct. Words can blur together. Meaning can dissolve. Only the rhythm remains, and that rhythm is enough. The nervous system understands it completely. It recognizes that it is safe to let go now. Chapter 3. Why silence can feel uncomfortable at night. Silence is not always calming. During the day, silence can feel peaceful. But at night, when the world withdraws, silence can feel empty. In that emptiness, the mind often steps forward. Without sound, without gentle distraction, the mind begins to create its own noise. It revisits small moments from the day, a sentence that didn't come out quite right, a look that felt slightly off, a task left unfinished. None of these thoughts are urgent, yet in the quiet of night, they gain weight. This doesn't mean you're anxious. It doesn't mean something is wrong. It simply means the mind doesn't like having nothing to hold. I remember a time when I thought silence was the answer to better sleep. I turned everything off. Lights, sounds, even my phone. And instead of feeling calm, I felt more awake. My thoughts became louder in the absence of sound. A friend once told me the same thing. She said silence made her feel like she was alone with her thoughts, and her thoughts were not gentle at night. What helped her wasn't noise. It was presence. A soft voice, a steady rhythm, something predictable. Silence removes stimulation, but it also removes reassurance. For the nervous system, complete quiet can feel like being left alone on watch. It listens harder. It scans deeper. A gentle background voice tells the body something important. You're not alone, and nothing is required of you. That's why certain sounds feel comforting, not because they entertain, but because they signal continuity. The mind doesn't need silence. It needs safety. When there's a calm voice in the background, the mind no longer has to fill the space. It can step back. It can soften. It can stop narrating. You may notice that when the words slow down, your thoughts slow down too. Not all at once, not forcefully, just gradually. There's no need to push silence onto yourself. No rule says sleep must arrive in quiet. Sometimes rest comes more easily when there's something gentle to lean against. As you listen now, you don't need to hear every word. You don't need to follow the meaning. Let the sound exist at the edges of your awareness. Let it replace the silence without demanding anything in return. If your thoughts fade, let them fade. If they return briefly, let them pass. Nothing here needs your attention. The night doesn't ask for silence. It asks for ease. And ease often begins when the mind no longer feels alone with itself. Chapter 4. Small, ordinary facts that let the mind rest. There are facts that wake the mind up, and there are facts that let the mind rest. The difference isn't intelligence, it isn't importance, it's weight. During the day, we're surrounded by information that asks us to react. News, messages, opinions. Each one quietly pulls the mind forward. At night, that kind of information keeps the system alert. But there is another kind of knowing. Simple, ordinary, almost forgettable. And that kind of information doesn't demand anything. I once noticed that when I listened to complex ideas before bed, my thoughts stayed sharp. But when the ideas were small and familiar, my mind softened. A relative of mine had the same experience. She told me she didn't want to learn anything new at night. She wanted something that felt already known, something the mind could recognize without effort. Ordinary facts work this way. They don't surprise. They don't challenge. They don't ask you to take a position. They simply pass by. For example, the way the body adjusts its temperature as you rest, or how breathing naturally becomes slower when the environment feels safe, or how muscles release tension without instruction. None of this requires thought. The mind doesn't need to follow these ideas. It only needs to notice that nothing urgent is happening. When there's no urgency, the nervous system begins to power down. You may notice that as you listen, the edges of your thoughts become softer, not gone, just less defined. This is the space where rest often begins. There's no need to hold on to the words. You can let them slip away as soon as they arrive. In fact, the mind rests best when it doesn't try to keep anything. Ordinary information gives the mind permission to be ordinary too. Not sharp, not alert, not prepared, just present. If your attention drifts, that's perfect. If the words blur together, that's even better. Nothing important is being missed. The value of this moment isn't in remembering, it's in releasing. As the mind lets go of the need to engage, the body takes the lead. Breath deepens, heartbeat slows. Awareness narrows gently. And rest begins to find its way in, quietly, without announcement. Small, ordinary facts that let the mind rest. There is something deeply comforting about ordinary things, not because they are important, but because they do not ask to be remembered. Ordinary facts do not pull the mind forward. They do not invite curiosity or debate, and they simply exist, quietly. The mind relaxes most easily when it realizes nothing is expected of it. During the day, information usually comes with responsibility. To respond, to decide, to react. At night, that kind of information feels heavy. But ordinary facts are different. They carry no consequence. For example, the way your body naturally shifts position during rest. Not to improve anything, just to stay comfortable. Or the way the eyes gently move beneath closed lids even when there is nothing to see. These are not things you need to understand. They are things that happen whether you notice them or not. When the mind encounters information like this, it doesn't prepare, it doesn't analyze, it softens. I once noticed that when I listened to content designed to teach, my thoughts stayed sharp, alert, ready. But when the words were about simple, everyday realities, my attention loosened, not out of boredom, but out of relief. A relative once described it this way. She said that learning felt like standing upright, while listening to ordinary facts felt like lying down. Nothing to hold, nothing to balance, just support. Ordinary facts give the mind permission to stop performing. There is no test coming, no point to reach. You don't need to store anything away. In fact, the mind rests best when it realizes forgetting is allowed. You might notice now that you are no longer following each sentence clearly. Words may overlap. Meanings may blur. This is not distraction. This is the mind stepping out of the way. The body prefers this state. When the mind stops organizing experience, the body begins to rest more deeply. As breathing finds its own rhythm, not steady, not controlled, just natural. The body does not require symmetry or consistency. It responds to comfort. You don't need to track how you feel. Tracking is effort. You don't need to decide whether this is working. Deciding keeps the mind active. Instead, you can allow attention to narrow on its own, like light dimming slowly in a room. You may notice that your sense of time becomes vague. Moments stretch or disappear. This is not something to observe closely. Time becomes less relevant when nothing is being done. Ordinary facts have no urgency. They do not pull you toward the future. They do not return you to the past. They remain in the present quietly. And that quiet presence is enough to give the mind something gentle to rest against. If thoughts appear, let them appear. They don't need engagement. If they fade, let them fade. Nothing is being lost. The value of this moment is not in clarity, but in softness. And softness does not require effort. It arrives when effort is no longer needed. As this chapter continues, the words can remain in the background. They do not need to form a story. They can exist as sound, steady, and unimportant. The body recognizes this kind of environment. It knows it is safe here, and when safety is felt, rest follows naturally, without instruction, without direction, without awareness. Chapter 5. When the body takes over and the mind lets go. There is a moment, usually late at night, when effort quietly stops working. You may have noticed it before. The harder you try to relax, the more awake you feel. The more you tell yourself to sleep, the more the mind stays alert. This isn't resistance, it's timing. The body rests best when it isn't being watched. All day long, your mind is in charge. It plans, it decides, it corrects. Even when you lie down, that habit doesn't disappear immediately. The mind stays on duty, waiting for instructions. But sleep doesn't follow instructions. Sleep happens when control gently steps aside. I didn't understand this for a long time. I thought rest was something you did, something you managed carefully. And if I followed the right routine, if I lay still enough, if I stopped thinking just a little harder, sleep would come. But every attempt to manage sleep kept me awake. A family member once described the same struggle. She said that the moment she started paying attention to her breathing, it felt unnatural. The moment she tried to relax, her body tightened. What changed things for her wasn't a technique. It was permission. She stopped monitoring herself. She stopped checking whether it was working. She let her body do what it already knew how to do. That's the quiet shift that matters. The body has been resting long before the mind learned to interfere. It knows how to slow the heart. It knows how to soften muscles. It knows how to drift. But it waits. It waits for the signal that nothing needs to be controlled. When you stop trying to sleep, you send that signal. The mind may still be present for a while. Thoughts may still pass through. That's fine. They don't need to disappear for the body to rest. You might notice something subtle instead. Your jaw loosens without you noticing. Your hands feel heavier. Your breathing changes on its own. These are signs the body is beginning to lead. There's no moment where sleep announces itself. No clear line where being awake turns into rest. It's more like a gradual dimming. Awareness narrows. The edges soften. Thoughts lose their shape. At this point, trying to help only pulls the mind back in. So there's nothing to do. Just let the body continue. I remember a night when I finally understood this. I had been awake longer than I wanted, and instead of fighting it, I simply stopped caring. I didn't check the time. I didn't adjust my position. I didn't analyze my thoughts. I just stayed. Sleep came quietly, without effort, somewhere between one breath and the next. That's often how it arrives. Not when you're ready, but when you're no longer watching. Your body isn't waiting for perfection. It doesn't need the room to be silent. It doesn't need your thoughts to stop completely. It only needs the absence of pressure. As you listen now, you can let the words become less clear. They don't need to make sense. If they fade, let them fade. If they repeat in your mind, let them repeat. Repetition is calming. Predictability is safe. The body recognizes both. There's a reason people fall asleep to familiar sounds. A fan, rain, a quiet voice. These sounds don't demand attention. They allow attention to dissolve. You may notice that your sense of time begins to change. Minutes stretch or disappear. Thoughts feel further away. This is not something to observe closely. It's something to allow. There is nowhere else you need to be. Nothing you need to solve tonight. Even tomorrow doesn't need your attention yet. For now, the only thing happening is rest slowly becoming possible. If you're still awake, that's okay. The body is still listening. If you drift in and out, that's perfect. That's often where sleep begins. You don't need to follow the words from here on. They can exist in the background, like a distant light, like a quiet presence. Your body knows when it's time, and when it's ready, it will take over completely, without asking for permission. There is a subtle shift that happens when the body begins to trust the moment. And it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ask for permission. It simply starts to take the lead. You may notice that effort has quietly disappeared. Not because you decided to stop trying, but because trying no longer feels necessary. The body has recognized that nothing is required. Breathing becomes something you're no longer aware of managing. It moves on its own rhythm, sometimes shallow, sometimes deep, sometimes uneven. And that's exactly how it should be. The body doesn't breathe in straight lines. It follows comfort, not rules. You might feel a heaviness settling in places that were tense before. The legs, the arms, the space behind the eyes. This heaviness is not fatigue. It is release. Muscles that have been holding posture all day are finally allowed to stop. There is no instruction involved, no technique, just absence of interference. You don't need to check if this is happening correctly. The moment you check, the mind steps back in. Instead, you can let sensation fade into the background. You don't need to feel every part of your body. You don't need to scan. Awareness can narrow naturally until only the simplest sensations remain. Warmth, weight, stillness. This is where the body prefers to rest, not in attention, but in neglect. Sleep often begins when the body is no longer being observed. The mind may still be nearby, but it is no longer directing anything. Thoughts pass like distant noise, unimportant, unattached. Nothing needs to be concluded. The body has taken over now and it knows the way. Chapter 6. Stories of letting go and sleeping without effort. Most people believe sleep improves when life improves, when work feels lighter, when problems are solved, when everything is finally in order. But that isn't what actually helps people sleep. What helps is letting go, often before life gives permission. I've seen this pattern repeat itself in people close to me. One friend struggled with sleep for years, not because her life was chaotic, but because her mind never stopped reviewing it. Every night became a quiet audit of the day. What she said, what she didn't say, what she should have done differently. She tried everything people usually try. Better routines, earlier bedtimes, carefully planned evenings. Nothing worked. What finally changed wasn't her schedule. It was her attitude toward being awake. One night, now exhausted from trying, she told herself, "If I'm awake, then I'm awake." No frustration, no judgment, no pressure. She lay there listening to a calm voice in the background, not even caring what was being said. That night, she slept. Not perfectly, not all at once, but enough. And more importantly, without fear. Another person I know had a different experience. He didn't struggle to fall asleep. He struggled to stay asleep. He would wake up in the middle of the night, heart slightly racing, thoughts already forming. Instead of fighting those moments, he began to treat them gently. No checking the time, no planning the next day, no convincing himself to calm down. He listened to something steady, something predictable. Eventually, his body stopped reacting to waking up as a threat. The awakenings became shorter, softer. Sometimes they disappeared entirely. What these experiences have in common isn't a method, it's permission. Permission to stop managing the night. Sleep doesn't respond to control. It responds to safety. And safety comes from knowing that being awake is not a failure. The moment you stop telling yourself you're behind, your nervous system relaxes. There is nothing wrong with being awake at night. There is nothing wrong with thoughts appearing. The problem only begins when you resist them. Think about how often tension comes from resistance, from telling yourself something shouldn't be happening. The body reacts to that judgment. It tightens, it prepares. But when resistance fades, the body has no reason to stay alert. You might notice now that the idea of sleep feels further away, less urgent. That's not a setback. That's often a sign you're getting closer. Sleep arrives when it's no longer the center of attention. As you listen, you may begin to forget where you are in the story. You may lose track of sentences. This isn't distraction, it's transition. Your awareness is narrowing naturally. You don't need to follow these words anymore. They can move past you, like footsteps in another room, like a voice you trust but don't need to respond to. If your body feels heavier, let it. If your thoughts slow down, let them. Nothing needs to be adjusted. There's no right way to rest. There's only the moment when the body feels safe enough to do so. That moment can't be forced, but it can be welcomed. And often, it arrives quietly, right after you stop waiting for it. And there is something else that often goes unnoticed. Many people think rest only begins when the mind is completely quiet. But that isn't true. Rest often begins while thoughts are still present. They simply stop asking for attention. You may notice that some thoughts still appear as you listen. Fragments, images, half-finished ideas. There is no need to follow them. They can drift through the mind the way clouds drift across a night sky. Noticed briefly, then gone. The body doesn't wait for perfect silence. It waits for neutrality. When thoughts no longer feel important, the body feels free to rest. I once spoke with someone who believed they had failed at sleeping for years. Every night felt like a test they couldn't pass. What finally changed wasn't sleep itself. It was how they related to being awake. They stopped labeling wakefulness as a problem. So they stopped measuring progress. They allowed the night to unfold without commentary. Sleep followed, not immediately, but consistently. This is something the body understands deeply. When nothing is being evaluated, there's no reason to stay alert. You may notice now that your sense of self feels softer, less defined. Thoughts may not feel like yours in the same way. They come and go without attachment. This is not losing control. It is releasing unnecessary effort. There's nothing you need to hold together right now. Even the idea of listening can loosen. You don't need to stay present. You don't need to stay aware. Awareness can fade without consequence. The night doesn't require supervision. As the body settles, small changes happen quietly. Muscles release tension they've been holding all day. Breathing becomes slower, then irregular, then effortless. The mind may still flicker with light activity, but it no longer directs the body. That role has been passed back where it belongs. You might notice moments where you don't remember what was just said. That's a good sign. It means the mind has stopped recording. It means you're moving away from narrative and toward rest. There is nothing meaningful happening in the words anymore. They are simply sound, and sound doesn't need interpretation. If you wake briefly later and hear this again, that's fine. The body will recognize the tone, the rhythm. It will know there is no urgency. This familiarity builds trust, and trust allows the nervous system to remain relaxed, even during brief awakenings. Sleep doesn't need to be defended. It doesn't need to be protected. It comes and goes naturally when the body feels safe. You don't have to chase it back if it leaves for a moment. It knows where you are. As you rest here, the idea of time may lose meaning. Minutes stretch, seconds dissolve. There is no schedule to keep. Nothing will be missed. Tomorrow will arrive whether you plan for it or not. Tonight belongs only to rest. Even effort itself can soften now. You don't need to think about letting go. Letting go happens when thinking becomes unnecessary. And that moment often arrives quietly, right after you stop paying attention. One of the most common misunderstandings about sleep is that it improves when people do better. Sleep improves when people stop judging the night. And I've seen this again and again. People who slept poorly weren't broken. They were attentive. Too attentive to every sensation, too alert to every thought. Once they stopped monitoring themselves, rest began to return. A relative once told me that what kept her awake wasn't discomfort, but anticipation. She was always waiting to see if sleep would come. The moment she stopped waiting, the night softened. Sleep does not respond well to being watched. It responds to neutrality. When being awake feels acceptable, the body stops treating it as a problem. That change alone reduces tension. You may notice that when pressure fades, the body behaves differently. Breathing becomes quieter. The chest rises less. Movement slows. This is not something to aim for. It happens naturally when judgment disappears. Many people believe they need to feel sleepy to sleep. But often, sleep comes before sleepiness. It arrives in the spaces between thoughts, in the moments when nothing is expected. Those moments cannot be forced. They appear when you stop looking for them. As you listen now, you may find it harder to stay with the words. Sentences blur. Ideas lose their shape. That's not distraction. That's the nervous system disengaging. There is no benefit in staying alert here. You don't need to understand what's being said. Understanding belongs to the day. Night belongs to release. If sleep comes now, let it. If it comes later, that's fine too. Nothing has been wasted. The body is learning something important either way. It is learning that the night is safe. And that lesson lasts longer than any single night. Chapter 7. The night is not a problem to solve. At some point in the night, the need to understand quietly fades. Not suddenly, not dramatically. It simply becomes unnecessary. Earlier, the mind may have been searching for meaning, for reassurance, for something to hold on to, but now even that searching begins to soften. The night does not ask you to solve it. It does not present a challenge. It does not require an answer. It simply exists. Many people unknowingly treat the night like a puzzle. If they can just figure out the right position, the right thought, the right moment, sleep will finally happen. But the night doesn't work that way. The night is not improved by effort. It responds to acceptance. I remember a time when I used to think every restless night meant something was wrong. I would analyze my day, my habits, my choices. I would look for causes and explanations, but none of that helped me rest. What helped was realizing that the night wasn't asking me to do anything. It was asking me to stop doing. A close friend once shared a similar realization. After years of struggling with sleep, she told me, "I finally stopped trying to make the night better." She didn't change her room. She didn't change her routine. She simply stopped engaging with the idea that the night needed fixing. That was the first night she slept through. There is a quiet relief that comes when you realize nothing is required of you right now. No decisions, no improvements, no evaluations. Even the idea of listening can loosen. You don't need to stay connected to these words. They can fade in and out. You're allowed to drift, and the body understands this state better than the mind ever could. It recognizes when effort disappears. It responds immediately. Muscles that were holding tension all day begin to release, not all at once, one place at a time. The shoulders soften, the stomach loosens. The face relaxes in ways you might not notice. The body doesn't rush this process. It moves at its own pace, and there is no benefit in watching it closely. Observation keeps the mind active. Permission allows the body to continue. You may notice that thoughts still appear, but they no longer form complete stories. They arrive as fragments, images, half ideas. This is the mind stepping back. It no longer feels responsible for guiding the night. There is a point, often unnoticed, where awareness becomes less personal. Thoughts feel distant. Sensations feel muted. This is not losing consciousness. It is simply narrowing it. The mind no longer needs to be everywhere at once. As the night deepens, time begins to lose its structure. Minutes no longer feel measured. Moments blur together. There is no need to know how long you've been here. The body does not measure rest in minutes. It measures it in safety, and safety has already been established. Nothing has demanded your attention for a while now. Nothing has interrupted you. The nervous system recognizes this consistency. It settles deeper. You may notice that even the desire to sleep feels weaker, less urgent. That's a good sign. Sleep arrives most easily when it is no longer being invited. It enters quietly, when the door's left open without expectation. You don't need to guide yourself there. You don't need to prepare. And even letting go doesn't require effort. It happens when effort becomes unnecessary. If you wake briefly later, that doesn't undo anything. The body remembers this state. It knows how to return. Each time you rest without pressure, you teach the nervous system something important. There is no danger in being still. There is no threat in the quiet. There is no urgency in the dark. This understanding stays with you even when you are not aware of it. Sleep becomes less fragile, less conditional. It no longer depends on perfect circumstances. It depends on trust, and trust grows slowly, night after night, each time you stop asking the night to perform. You're not behind. You're not late. You're not missing anything. The night is not a task to complete. It is a space to rest within. As these words continue, they can become softer, less clear. They don't need to form sentences in your mind anymore. They can dissolve into sound, like a distant presence, like something familiar that no longer needs attention. Your body knows what comes next. It has been moving toward it this entire time. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to understand. The night is already holding you, and you are already allowed to rest. There is a quiet moment that often arrives without warning. It happens when the mind finally stops asking questions. Not because every question has been answered, but because the need to ask has gently faded. You may notice that even curiosity begins to soften. Thoughts no longer reach outward. They no longer search for meaning or explanation. This is not boredom. It is rest. The mind, for once, is not trying to get somewhere. Earlier in the night, there may have been a subtle urgency, a feeling that sleep needed to happen soon, that tomorrow depended on it. But now, that urgency loosens. The body does not rush toward sleep. It drifts toward it. There is a difference. Rushing keeps the nervous system alert. Drifting allows it to release. You may notice that your breathing has changed, not deeper on purpose, just slower. The pauses between breaths stretch slightly longer. The body is no longer checking. Even the sense of effort becomes faint. You don't need to hold your posture. You don't need to adjust your position. The body settles the way water settles when left alone. Somewhere in this quiet, the idea of you may feel softer, less defined. Thoughts don't feel personal anymore. They pass through without attachment. This is not losing yourself. It is resting from yourself. There is no identity to maintain here, no role to play. The night does not ask who you are. It does not care what you've done. It simply offers space. And in that space, the body continues its slow work. Tension that has been held for hours, sometimes days, begins to unwind. Not dramatically, not all at once, just enough. The mind may briefly notice this and then drift again. Awareness flickers, narrows, returns to quiet. If there is any part of you still waiting for something to happen, you can let that waiting go too. Nothing is coming. Nothing needs to arrive. This moment is complete as it is. The night is not leading anywhere. It is simply deepening, and you are already moving with it. Chapter 8. Let the night carry you the rest of the way. At some point, effort becomes unnecessary. Not because you've done something right, but because there is nothing left to do. The night doesn't ask for explanation. It doesn't need to be understood. It only needs space. As you rest here, you may notice that the idea of listening has changed. The words no longer feel important. They arrive, then dissolve. This is exactly how it's meant to be. Sleep doesn't come from paying attention. It comes from releasing it. You might still be awake in moments. You might still notice thoughts drifting through. There is no problem with that. The body does not require the mind to be silent. It only requires the mind to stop interfering. Right now, there is nothing to interfere with. The day has already passed. Whatever needed to happen has happened. Whatever didn't can wait. The night is not a space for fixing. It is a space for carrying you gently, without direction. You don't need to decide where this goes. You don't need to follow the words. They are only here to remind the nervous system that it is safe to let go. Many people believe sleep is fragile, something that can be broken easily. But sleep is resilient. It has survived noisy streets, uncertain times, uncomfortable places. It knows how to arrive even when conditions aren't perfect. It doesn't need silence. It doesn't need darkness. It doesn't need your approval. It only needs the absence of resistance. As you lie here, your body is already making small adjustments. You don't have to notice them. Blood pressure slowly lowers. Muscles soften in places you forgot were tense. Breathing finds its own rhythm. You are not guiding this. The body does not ask the mind how to rest. It remembers. There may be moments when awareness fades almost completely, then returns briefly. This is natural. Like drifting near the shore before floating out, there is no need to stay awake to witness it. There is no reward for staying conscious. You are allowed to disappear into rest. If thoughts appear, let them pass without response. No engagement, no judgment. They are just remnants of motion slowing down. Even the sense of you can become quieter now, less defined, less central. This isn't loss, it's relief. You don't need to hold your identity together tonight. You don't need to be anyone. You can simply exist, without narrative, without effort, without direction. The night knows how to do the rest. There is a reason people describe sleep as falling. It isn't climbed into. It happens when support replaces tension. Right now, you are supported by the surface beneath you, by the stillness around you, by the absence of demand. Nothing is being asked of you. You may notice that time feels less structured. Moments stretch or blur together. This isn't confusion, it's release. The mind is stepping out of measurement mode. No minutes to count, no hours to track, only drifting. If you wake later and hear this again, it will still be here. Nothing will have changed. The tone will be the same. The pace will be the same. That consistency tells the body something important. Nothing unexpected is happening. And with that reassurance, the nervous system remains calm. You don't need to prepare for tomorrow. Preparation belongs to daylight. Night is for repair, for quiet rebuilding, for restoring balance without conscious effort. Even if sleep feels light at first, even if it comes in layers, the body is still resting. Rest does not have to be deep to be meaningful. Every moment without resistance counts. There is nothing to win here, nothing to achieve. The idea of success can fade now. You don't need to succeed at sleeping. Sleep happens on its own schedule, and often it arrives right after you stop caring whether it comes. As you listen, or half listen, or stop listening entirely, you can let the words continue without you. They don't need an audience. They're only markers, gentle signals that everything is steady. Your breathing may slow, then pause briefly, then continue. This is normal. The body knows exactly how much air it needs. You don't need to correct it. If your jaw drops slightly, let it. If your tongue rests differently, let it. Small signs of release matter. They mean the body is settling into trust. The night is long. There is plenty of time. No rush, no deadline. You are not behind. You never were. Even now, the idea of being awake may feel distant, unimportant. That's a good place to leave it. You don't need to track whether you're sleeping or not. That question can dissolve. The boundary between listening and resting can blur completely. And when it does, there is nothing left to manage. Only drifting, only softness, only the quiet continuation of the night. You can let go now. The body will take it from here. By now, words are no longer instructions. They are simply sound. You don't need to follow them. You don't need to remember them. They can pass by like distant echoes, barely noticed. This is the point where language becomes unnecessary. The body understands what to do next without explanation. Sleep does not require clarity. It requires absence of effort. The mind may still appear from time to time, but it no longer takes the lead. Thoughts are slower now, softer. They do not form complete ideas. They dissolve before reaching meaning. This is the natural fading that comes before deep rest. There is no reason to stay aware of it. Awareness can come and go. If it fades completely, that's fine. If it returns briefly, that's fine too. The body remains steady underneath. You may not notice the moment sleep arrives. Most people don't. There is no signal, no clear transition. One moment you are here, and the next you are not thinking at all. That space is not something to observe. It happens when observation stops. You have already done enough tonight. You have listened. You have allowed. You have let the night unfold. Nothing more is required. Even rest itself does not need encouragement. It arrives when the path is clear, and the path is already clear. As these words continue to soften and thin, they can become part of the background, like a distant hum, like something familiar that no longer needs attention. The body recognizes this state. It knows it well. It has entered it countless times before, long before words were involved. There is nothing fragile about sleep. It does not break easily, and it does not need protection. It returns naturally when pressure disappears. And pressure has already faded. You are safe here. Nothing is expected of you. The night continues on its own, and you are free to let go completely. As this journey comes to a gentle close, there is nothing you need to take with you, no lesson to remember, no idea to hold on to, no conclusion to reach. If you are still awake, that is perfectly fine. And if sleep has already begun to take you, then these words are simply here in the background. Quiet, unimportant, and safe. When I first started creating moments like this, I believed I was helping people sleep by giving them answers, by explaining why rest was difficult, by offering reasons, patterns, understanding. But over time, I realized something simpler and more honest. People don't need better explanations at night. They need less demand. Most of us live our lives being asked to perform, to decide, to improve, to become something more. Even rest, strangely, becomes another task. And yet, the most healing nights are often the ones where nothing is required at all. I've seen this in people close to me. Friends who spent years trying to fix their sleep, only to find rest when they stopped trying. I've seen it in myself too. The nights when I slept best were not the nights when everything was perfect, but the nights when I finally let go of the idea that something needed to be different. That's the quiet truth I want to leave you with. You do not need to earn rest. You do not need to deserve sleep. You do not need to reach a certain state of calm. Rest is not a reward. It is a natural response to safety, and safety begins the moment pressure fades. Tonight, you have already done enough. You listened, you allowed, you stayed. That is more than enough. If your thoughts return later, let them. And if you wake briefly in the night, let that happen too. Nothing is undone. Your body remembers this feeling now, the feeling of not being watched, the feeling of not being judged. That memory stays with you longer than any single night. Over time, nights like this teach the nervous system something important, that the dark is not a threat, that quiet is not empty, that stillness does not require effort. And once the body learns that, sleep becomes less fragile, less conditional. It no longer depends on perfect silence or the right routine or the absence of thoughts. It depends on trust, and trust grows slowly, gently, one night at a time. If you are drifting now, there is no need to stay with these words. They can fade. If you are still listening, you don't need to focus. This ending does not need your attention. There is nothing important happening here anymore. Only space, only quiet, only the night continuing on its own. I want to thank you, not for listening carefully, but for giving yourself this moment. In a world that constantly asks for more, choosing to rest is an act of care. If you ever return to this video, whether tonight or another night, know that there is no expectation waiting for you. You don't need to sleep faster. You don't need to sleep better. You only need to arrive, and you already have. The night does not measure success. It does not keep score. It simply holds you until you are ready to let go completely. So if sleep comes now, let it take you quietly. If it comes later, that's fine too. This space remains open. Nothing needs to be finished. Nothing needs to be concluded. You are allowed to rest exactly as you are, and the night will do the rest on its own.